What's up, guys? How we all doing today? We got a streak to talk about on the show. We got a great quote from Brian Armstrong, something you probably never heard before. Bitcoin might be a global reserve currency. Heard that from a guy named Brian Armstrong. Really groundbreaking news.
This just
But
in.
it's interesting. Where I want to start is, Steven, is there anyone that you want to make sure has a great day today?
Man, I just really hope, I wake up in the morning and I just think, I hope Predator has a great day. I honestly, I think, if he could have an amazing day, that would just be awesome.
What did I miss?
Just hoping people have a great day, man. Just,
Good vibes.
There's a lot of tensions. There's a lot of tensions in the community. And, I think if everybody had a great day, it just, go a long way. You know what I mean?
I'm envisioning Steven's morning routine. He wakes up, he gets outside, puts his feet in the grass, looks up at the sun, pours a cup of morning creatine, and then after that, he's wishing Predator has a great day.
It's like a meta meditation. It's like that's called like loving kindness meditation in Bitcoin. Like you meditate and you just, you kind of like wish all sentient beings happiness. And it's a little bit like that. I just think the only thing I can do here is just really, hope he has a good day.
What more could you ask for? All right, guys, let's get into it. Thanks everyone who has joined us at the very start of the show here. I will be hosting in place of Brady. Upset that we don't have Brady here today, but he's got a family commitment. He might be listening in, but we don't have our great host Brady today, so I'll be filling in. As usual, as has been the case for at least a year now, there's no shortage of things to talk about. I can't really remember the last week where I've said, oh man, what are we going to talk about? There's just kind of tons of news flow. Looks like Steven popped out, but we will get him back in. That happens to me sometimes too. He's already back. All right, great. So let's kick it off. We'll look at just some macro asset class performance to start. A little bit of a tip of the hat to Peter Schiff because gold is still at the top of the chart. So let's go to our first graphic here. Let's just look at, and this is in the FT. So it's noteworthy that the FT does recognize Bitcoin as an asset class, as they should. But Bitcoin, you can see there, is number 2. And number 3 is emerging markets. I posted this and internally in Swan channels, and one of our colleagues pointed out how Lynn Alden basically had been making the call for gold, Bitcoin, and relative outperformance of emerging market versus DM. So this is just like a, hey, great call, Lynn Alden chart here. Do you guys have any comments you want to make on this one? I know it's just kind of showing the performance, but anything you guys want to add here?
Can confirm Lynn Alden was talking about, and it's risky. It's risky to talk about emerging markets because every time someone says they'll do well, they don't do well. It's been a fund ruiner and a reputation ruiner for many over this last decade. But she did call out the potential for that emerging markets rotation. And following the Trump presidency, trade war, dollar policy, they have delivered relative outperformance. Although it has, sorry, I'm just looking at this. Like, yeah, it has moderated recently. Like a lot of that performance was front loaded during the kind of the peak of the trade war and the dollar move. Like obviously US stocks have done better recently. So we'll see how the year shapes out. The US has been bouncing back, but it was a great call for her.
So I'll add something just quickly. I think what jumps out to me, it's always great. Let's look at the winners. But what stands out to me is at the bottom, the US dollar, negative 10%. You really, it just shines that you could literally own anything besides dollars and be okay, right? Of course, it's great to have those calls, gold, Bitcoin, emerging markets, but anything other than holding dollars is best. And I love seeing that.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, Bitcoiners have been calling this since the big print in 2020. And if you bet on gold or Bitcoin or in whatever in the bottom of the market in the COVID crash, you're doing very well, very well. So it's crazy to see that. I feel like every time with investment stuff, it's like what Bitcoiners have been saying for a long time. That's usually what comes true. So listen to the Bitcoiners.
If you just get your 40 hours per week in, you'll know the answer to all questions in life.
the way to listen to Bitcoiners is to listen to Bitcoin podcasts. You know, you gotta wake up, put your feet in the grass, have your morning cup of creatine, pop in that Bitcoin podcast, and get your 40 hours a weekend.
And wish others a great day.
And wish everybody a great day. I mean, this is we're trying to live a good life. We're trying to have sound money. We're trying to make sure people have a good day.
Love it.
All right, where to go from there? We have a streak to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is interesting for sure. We got, if we close today above 100K, that'll be 43 straight days where Bitcoin closes above 100K, which is pretty big deal, I think.
For the baseball fans out there, does which Hurley, I believe you are one. Does the number 56 mean anything to you?
I'm not a huge baseball. I mean, I love baseball, but I haven't followed it for a while. What's 56?
I would have been surprised if you got it, and I had to look it up to get the number. But the player with the longest hitting streak in MLB history, consecutive games with a hit, is Joe DiMaggio in the 40s for the Yankees. So I'm just waiting for, hopefully, Bitcoin stays above 100K for another 2 weeks. And then we can get some good Bitcoin Joe DiMaggio memes out of that one, I'm sure.
You've been waiting a long time for that one, haven't you?
I have. I mean, and just to, this is to state the obvious in case anyone wasn't aware. This Bitcoin has never been above 100K for this long. It crossed 100K in early December for the first time. It's like the first few days of December. And it was there for, I can't remember offhand, maybe a week or two, but then it did dip down into the 90s. We ended the year at like 93K, December 31st. Then obviously we wrote it up around Trump's inauguration. That was a local high, came down to around 75K during the trade wars. But now since we've gone above 100K post that, it's been above 100K for 42, 43 days. So pretty interesting price action.
I feel like it's a perfect example of like how quickly recency bias sets in, because it's like this is still uncharted territory above 100K.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is the first time I've ever seen there's like a guy behind you, John. And does he know he's on a Bitcoin podcast? I've never seen someone in that corner. There's these two dudes. They're just standing there, and like, he's famous now. He made it on a Bitcoin podcast. He doesn't even know it.
So these guys are good guys. They're just in like the workspace over. I'm in one of these shared workspace things. I'm in a different room. I can't hear them. They can't hear me. But yeah, they are having like their whole team come in from somewhere else. So they have more people in that room than usual. And they're now famous, as you said, Steve.
They made it on Swan Signal Live. I mean, you should tell them after. You gotta tell them.
Do you guys remember several months ago when one comment in the chat said, "Hey, John, I'm at the same spot as you"? Do you remember this? And the guy was like 2 rooms over.
Yeah. That was crazy.
That was ridiculous.
I think even though Bitcoin's been over 100K for 45 days, a lot of normies are still not. They're not paying attention to Bitcoin. I'm curious if the guy behind you knows that Bitcoin is over 100K. You should go ask after.
So to that point, Alec, one of the good normie check-ins that I have is the group of guys that I play hockey with, and they all know that I work for a Bitcoin company, so that's not a secret. And a lot of times they'll bring up something to me about it, but I had a friend bring it up last night. He goes to me, he's like, "What is Bitcoin at now?" He's like, "Is it at like 120 or like 130? Like it was a weird one. It's like you don't know enough to check the price, but your assumption is that it's just like even higher than it was the last time.
Yeah, I get that all the time. My close-knit friends and family, they're like, "How's Bitcoin doing?" I'm like, "Good."
Do you have the internet? You could answer that question yourself.
Yeah. And I get messages from my sister who's stacking now, like literally almost like, cause I tell her like, "Oh, buy the dips," she's like trying to DCA, and she'll message me and be like, what's the price? I'm like, you could just search it on Google, right? Like she's like asking me the price every week. It's ridiculous.
The concierge price service, you know what I mean? You need your personal Bitcoin price guy. You can't just like look it up yourself.
Yeah.
So on private, if you text us and ask the Bitcoin price, we will respond with the Bitcoin price.
You will get an answer. It is the first SMS Bitcoin price checker for private clients only.
But yeah, it's pretty crazy. We're like, there's boredom above 100K right now. Like you said, John, it's been 6 months, just over 6 months since we first hit 100K. It's been, a couple more months than that, probably 8 months since we've seen it, a true kind of vertical run. So there's a little bit of boredom setting in at 100K, which is pretty wild to see. And like Alex says, retail's nowhere to be found.
No, yeah. This has been, I think there's a few things going on. I think people they haven't start fully paying attention yet. Like, yes, it's near all-time highs. Yes, it's done very well, but I don't think it's had the sort of run yet that really sucks in new retail. I think that's part of it. I also think there's like retail dollars, I think, are being diverted to some degree to the treasury plays, which are like much higher volatility. And so I think there's these two factors, but I think as it heats up, Bitcoin price goes higher. I think we're over 120, over 130 soon. And I think you start to see more of that. We just haven't got there yet.
You heard it here first, folks.
So where do we want to go from here, Hurley? Maybe just as a fun one, and since I referenced it at the beginning, can we play the Brian Armstrong clip?
Yeah, I feel like this is pretty funny. Speaking of, you heard it here first. Here's Brian Armstrong.
Money has multiple purposes, right? It's a medium of exchange, which stablecoins is solving beautifully. It's also intended to be a store of value. And right now, democracies around the world are really struggling to get their deficit spending under control. And I think that Bitcoin actually, I guess my crazy little bit out there idea is that I think Bitcoin is going to provide an important check and balance on deficit spending. And if it gets out of control too much, people will flee to it in times of uncertainty. And it could actually end up that Bitcoin is the new reserve currency of the world.
Bitcoin is the new reserve currency. You heard it here first. Thank you, guys.
I may have heard that somewhere else first. I don't know. Like, is that the first time you guys heard that? Have you ever heard someone say that Bitcoin might be the new reserve currency?
Groundbreaking stuff right there.
Yeah,
it's a real out there idea.
Yeah. He'd be a good guest on some Bitcoin podcasts.
I mean, I'm trying to like defend it a little bit. If he was presenting to like a super tradfi normie audience, then that caveat could be required. It's like, hey, it's a little out there. You guys might be hearing this for the first time. According to the top left of that screen, that was a crypto event.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
It's the year 2025. If people are following crypto, even if it's Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, you should have heard that 1,000 times going back at least 5 years. So for him to think that he needed to give that qualifier and say it's a crazy out there idea, and for her to say you heard it here first, it's like the crypto people are just in another world.
Like I don't blame it. It took me a while to understand Bitcoin, right? A lot of people, they go through a journey, they dabble in crypto, take some time to fully understand Bitcoin, right? I think it took me 4 years from first touching crypto to truly understanding Bitcoin. But surprising coming from one of the earliest people to launch one of the largest companies touching Bitcoin. Maybe it just took him the 8 years or however long, he's been around in the space to finally pick up the Bitcoin Standard or other amazing books. Maybe he's listening to his 40 hours a week of Bitcoin podcast now. Who knows? I think he gets it.
Brian Armstrong is finally saying good things about Bitcoin after 13 years because he finally started listening to Bitcoin podcasts. I think we figured it out.
That's it. Doesn't he always start to just talk about Bitcoin in the forefront, like right around this point in the cycle, and then he pivots to crypto stuff?
I could see it. I think, like, gut check, I think this is the most vocal and positive he's been with like actually saying the Bitcoin word. And my base case for this year is like the money goes into Bitcoin and Bitcoin plays. It does not go into crypto. I think crypto does not have a hot hand. They don't have a shiny new object. And I think the vehicle for the speculative returns has been denominated in Bitcoin with these companies. And so it's like the speculative flows and the like fundamental buying pressure, I think it just all turns into Bitcoin this time, or most of it, rather than this like sucking sound towards the crypto markets.
Good segue to this. You had this take, Stephen, about kind of the crypto money funds pivoting to Bitcoin treasury plays. I don't know if you want to talk about that for a little bit.
Totally. So, obviously there's been some news out, like I'm going to be working on treasury companies going forward. And so it's a part of the market I've been paying attention to. And so like the question is like, are we early? Are we late? Where are we in this trend. Like, you know, some people are like, oh my God, these stocks have gone up so much. Like, are we at a top? Are we, you know, et cetera. And so I've been paying attention to this, and the closer I've gotten to this segment of the market, the more I actually am truly convinced we're very early. We're at this very kind of nascent point in this. And the reason I come to that conclusion, it's a few points. I can't get into all of them here. But one of them is that like these stocks have been going up hundreds of percent. I'm talking about like the small international plays. And you basically see zero discussion of it on like crypto Twitter or crypto trading Twitter. And it tells you like these guys are not paying attention to it yet. Now, if they're not paying attention to it yet, I guarantee people that are even further removed from Bitcoin, normal people, normal capital, is not really paying attention to it yet. When I look at this phenomena, I see something that has barely spread beyond like an early group of Bitcoiners and MicroStrategy fans that were big on this topic for the last 6 or 8 months. This is that early cohort. And I'm just now I think yesterday was the first time I've ever seen like a big crypto account start posting about the treasury companies. Like, and it's like there's one of them. And I guarantee you, like, once that fleshes out, you're in that kind of early ramp in this trend. So it's just something I watch, and you know, time will tell. But my conclusion is we're at the beginning of what's going to be a huge story this year.
Yeah. Didn't Charles Hoskinson like just come out? I know this is not directly related, but didn't he come out and say he was going to like sell a bunch of ADA, a bunch of his ship coin for Bitcoin on a treasury or something?
Yeah, they're going to just like buy Bitcoin and try to use the returns theoretically. Like, this is what he says, to like increase the price of ADA, which I don't think will happen. This is funny to me. This was funny to me because for years, Bitcoiners have said people only issue shitcoins to get more Bitcoin. Like, that's the function is to get your Bitcoin. This has been a saying. And I find it very ironic that the founder of one of these large cryptos has basically come out formally and said, okay, we're like, the function's going to be, we're going to sell it and we're going to buy Bitcoin. That's the strategy.
I have seen a few crypto media accounts talk about the Bitcoin treasury strategy, but they did it in a way where both of them were trying to they were trying to plant the seed of like, oh, this is a crypto treasury thing. And I just saw that and like laughed. I was like, you guys are trying to make this happen. Like, this is not a thing. It's a Bitcoin treasury thing. So, but I would still argue that aligns with what Steven is saying, is that they have not even appreciated that this is a Bitcoin treasury strategy thing. So like their pivot has yet to come.
And I think the pivot comes. I think it comes to both Bitcoin and these treasury companies. I think it's part of one big pivot. And it's just that like crypto has heavily underperformed Bitcoin, let alone these higher volatility aspects. And there's going to be this capitulation moment. Like, they're in denial right now. I think all these people are in denial. The alt season is going to come. Like, it's going to happen again. We just need to wait. But I think it's not. And I think eventually there will be this capitulation that is both like individual and traders and investors and speculators and whatever you want to call them. And they'll rotate to Bitcoin. But where the real opportunity is, at least on a flows basis, is the funds. You know, say what you will about retail getting fleeced, but there are so many funds that did very well in this environment over the last 8 years. You know, playing in these markets and funding these things. And they're sitting on, I would guess, hundreds of billions of dollars, $100 billion plus. Like, there's quite a bit of money in these very successful funds. Maybe that's a little bit of a high estimate, but I'm guessing. And that money, realizing that there's only one place to deploy this cycle. That's not even me saying it's a cycle. I almost don't even like using that word right now. Who knows? Like, I think the market structure has evolved a lot, and we'll see what that looks like. But just in this moment in time, this bull market, I think they're going to realize there's only one place to deploy, and it's Bitcoin. And I think that those flows will come. They haven't yet, but they will.
All right. I think we want to move one piece of news this week. While it's not directly related to Bitcoin, it did catch a lot of headlines. Was the Genius Act did pass. So we could maybe, perfect Trump tweet here talking about the Genius Act. We'll just read the last sentence here. This is American brilliance at its best, and we are going to show the world how to win with digital assets like never before. That was from a couple days ago. So the Genius Act, I mean, most Bitcoiners are probably not following this one in like tremendous detail, but just to give you guys an idea of what is in this bill, it's basically who can issue stable coins, what kind of reserves and backing they should have, redemption procedures and disclosures, what role the government takes on and different regulators take on. So like that's generally what the Genius Act is about, but it's really for stable coins.
Yeah.
So does anyone want to offer a view on, also we have a tweet from Peter Schiff we want to show and a clip from Scott Bessent. Maybe we show the Bessent clip first and then we can talk about it all.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't been shy about talking about stable coins being a means to increase kind of the dominance of the dollar. So here, let's look at this. This is this was on a podcast this week, I think, from Bessent. So
because crypto, that seems to be a threat to the dollar, doesn't it?
I think it's the opposite.
Oh, really?
I think stable coins could reinforce dollar supremacy, because with stable coins could end up being one of the largest buyers of U.S. treasuries or T-bills.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, if you are using a stable coin in Nigeria that's backed by the U.S. dollar, you don't actually have to have dollars. It's on your phone. You can transact. So I think there's a very good chance that crypto is actually one of the things that locks in dollar supremacy.
Yeah, we missed the beginning of that. She was saying crypto is a threat to dollar dominance, and he was like, no. I thought that was interesting that he flipped it right to stable coins. When, I mean, if you were watching that and you understood Bitcoin, you would understand her to mean Bitcoin as being a threat to dollar dominance. But he's only talking about stable coins in that clip.
Yeah. So, I mean, on the stablecoin front, it's kind of a no-brainer for the US. Like, that's not me saying like extend dollar dominance, but it's, I've had this view for a number of years. I've written some stuff as far back as like 21 and 2022 that basically was just saying like, hey, like, this isn't me advocating for you to do it, but like the US is insane to not embrace this. Like, it is like the most golden goose gift from heaven for the US of an ability to satisfy global dollar demand with debt specifically. They literally can't do it right now, not directly. And so it's no surprise to me to see that an administration is finally leaning into this. It was an obvious play for them. And again, like the way I relate to all these things is like, one can't argue with reality. Like, there are certain things that were always going to be the case. They were always going to happen. There's no scenario, like in a world where stablecoins exist, I think there's almost no scenario where the US doesn't embrace them. It was just a matter of time. So it's happening. That should have been expected. Same thing we're seeing in a lot of segments of the Bitcoin market. There's just certain developments that, like, of course they're happening. Of course companies are buying it. Of course these, like, it was always going to happen. And so it doesn't surprise me. And I think it does ultimately at the edges drive some capital to Bitcoin, which is nice. And otherwise it's just dollars, right? Everyone uses dollars today. This is just a new way to use dollars. It doesn't really matter. It's not a threat to Bitcoin. And at the edge, I think it does drive capital to it, as well as, like, if you want to get more Bitcoin regulation, if you want, you know, Bitcoin reserve, there's other things, capital gains treatment for Bitcoin in certain ways, even just a de minimis exemption. If you can't pass the Genius bill, you're going to struggle to pass those other bills. So in the kind of like process of regulatory progress, like you could argue it's positive.
I have a few thoughts, and then Alec and Hurley want to get, and maybe Steven, you too, on the views of whether and why stablecoin adoption does bring more capital into Bitcoin, because I feel like that's something you hear a lot, but people don't always explain it. But I just wanted to offer a takeaway from hearing that clip, where the way that they use the word crypto, you know, it's not really coherent. I would love to be able to ask, but Bessent, I'm sure, could explain it. But like the interviewer I'm not sure if she has really a coherent view on like what crypto is. Like it's all stable coins and Bitcoin and Dogecoin is like all crypto. And if you asked her to explain the differences between those three things, I have a feeling you might not get a great answer. So that kind of came across to me. Someone who's interviewing the literal Secretary of the Treasury doesn't seem to have a great understanding of the differences between three things that are very different. But Alec, Hurley, or Steven, does anyone want to give a view on why people make this claim that broader stablecoin adoption is actually good for capital to flow into Bitcoin?
Yeah, sure. So it's good at the margin, like it's incrementally positive. I don't want to say like if $10 billion goes into stable coins, $10 billion go into Bitcoin. That's surely not the case. One of them is simply Tether, that Tether commits to buying a certain amount of Bitcoin with the revenue. So the more Tether that Tether issues, the more Bitcoin that gets bought. And like there are these stablecoin providers. I mean, Tether's the big one that have just been big Bitcoin bulls, big Bitcoin fans. And so that has been true. Now, if JP Morgan issues the stable coin, which it looks like they're trying to do, like they're not going to buy Bitcoin with those revenues. So that's a thing. The second reason would just be that like as people around the globe start to hold assets in stable coins, it's easier in many ways for them to buy Bitcoin with them. There are other channels, and they also get used to using like a cryptographically secured form of money, right? Like with a wallet and a private key. And incrementally at the edges, you get more people that are engaging in that way. And that makes Bitcoin make more sense. It's like a smaller leap because right now it's like a two-phase transition. You go from using dollars in your bank account to using Bitcoin. You have to make the leap from dollar to Bitcoin, but also from bank account to wallet. You have to make both of those leaps at the same time.
And
if intermediary leap where it's dollars in bank account to dollars in wallet, you're only changing one thing. You're going from bank account to wallet. And so it's like, okay, it's the same dollar. It's not these new things. I don't have to deal with volatility, but I'm learning to transact in a new sort of system. And then it's only one leap to get to Bitcoin. So that would be my answer.
Yeah, I think if you think a little farther out on the curve as well, being that stable coins are going to help purchase more US debt because they're, with this Genius bill, they're required to back with treasuries or similar instruments. You could make the case that propping up an increase in debt, globally is going to drive people to more neutral reserve currencies such as Bitcoin. So farther out on the curve, but they'll help drive that distinction.
More money printing. They make more money printing.
Exactly.
No, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
And I mean, weren't stablecoins originally made for, like you were saying, Stephen, like for crypto exchanges, for the crypto rails to be able to buy, crypto and digital assets more easily? So it's
100%.
Yeah. So it's like they were created for that purpose. So it does make it easier. It's like you're already having a digitized dollar. It makes it easier to just transfer that into the one that people will eventually see holds value better and increases in value better than the dollar. And people will realize just from seeing the price of Bitcoin and seeing their stablecoin value that it's probably a better idea to have transferred that into Bitcoin at some point, right?
If you live in the United Kingdom or China, it is an order of magnitude easier to convert Tether to Bitcoin than it is bank balances. That's just real. Like that's just a real factor.
Yeah.
Can we show the Peter Schiff tweet? Perfect.
Yeah, you read my mind.
You're a step ahead of me, Hurley. Great. So first off, it's obviously hilarious that Peter Schiff starts a tweet with "I get Bitcoin." Do you, Peter? Based on a lot of other evidence, that's not the case. But it's funny how apparently he's saying that Bitcoin makes more sense than US dollar stablecoins. That's one way to read that. Of course, he proposes something being backed by gold. And then Willie Woo has an interesting response where he says, it's the same reason why gold isn't used to settle trade. We still price everything in fiat. Stables are a form of pseudo banking on modern rails, invented to bank the unbanked crypto exchanges. They scale with BTC size as the other side of the market's order book. So that kind of gets into some of the things that we were just saying there.
Another, you heard it here first too, Peter Schiff advocating for a gold-backed crypto. No one's ever tried that before.
Yeah.
And this does feed in nicely to the next thing that I wanted to go to, which is we are obviously big proponents of the 40 hours of Bitcoin podcast per week here, but I do take some hours of my week to go into more TradFi minded podcasts because I want to hear what they're talking about. So this is Eric Townsend is the host of Macro Voices. Jeff Curry is now with Carlyle, but he was Goldman Sachs head of commodity research for a really long time. So Eric Townsend had a conversation with Jeff Curry, and they were both like riffing on this idea and generally agreeing that a gold and oil backed government run and issued digital currency would somehow be a viable option to take on the US dollar. And to be honest, it was a little hard to even make sense of what they were saying, but I just find it to be kind of amazing. It's like, did they know that we had a gold backed currency already in history? And why did that not work? And why, out of 200 countries around the globe, do none of them have a gold-backed currency today? And just to give a little bit more detail on what they were proposing, it was like specifically a UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Russia-backed, issued.
I think China was in there too.
Maybe even China's in there too. And it's issued by those countries. Can you think of the coordination that would be required for those countries to actually issue a currency and manage it over time? Then they put in the gold and oil backing, which presumably means convertible into. That's like what backing is supposed to be. And then it's like, you think they're going to agree on the terms for that? And anyone who wants to get it is going to be, even if they give you the terms that they said they would give you, you're going to get your gold and your oil. Like, people want that form of redemption in their money. I don't think so. And the reason I bring all this up is these are not just two random guys on Twitter that I think have a dumb idea. These are two guys who are like very well versed in traditional markets. One guy, Jeff Curry, has had like just an incredible Wall Street career, and they're like bouncing around this idea that to us really makes no sense whatsoever. So I had to put that out there.
This is like a classic case of just being totally macro brained. Like, I've seen this for years where there's these people. I'm trying to think of like the logical flaw that like underpins it. It's something like, it almost reminds me of the problem with all the ICOs in 2017 and like these early crypto blockchain plays, because it starts with this premise that's like, it is technically possible to do this. Like, it is technically possible to run all your supply chains on a blockchain, right? Like, you could do it. The reason that failed is because it is practically infeasible. No one wants to do it. There's all these network effect problems. You can't coordinate everyone. The benefits aren't large enough. And this is like a similar thing where it's like, well, on paper, they could do it, and that sounds good. And it's like, yeah, but that would never happen. Plus, like, there's so little benefit to that over Bitcoin in a sense, which has like an extremely entrenched network effect, right? And so it's just this thing that's like possible on paper, but is like just totally macro brained. Like, I've seen this a million times over the years, these critics that just like come up with these elaborate systems of incentives for the US government and for these other nations and why they're going to ban it and they're going to shut down all the exchanges and they're going to do all this and all of that. Guess what? It never fucking happened.
I love macro brain. That's the first time I've ever heard that. That's great.
I think there's two things here. One, I always knew Peter Schiff understood Bitcoin. I thought that was just a ploy the whole time. And number two, the macro brain is great. Everybody, when crypto first became a thing, they're just, they're searching for a problem to solve with it. And I think it's that same concept. They don't really understand crypto at all. So they're just taking it and saying, oh, this thing can maybe solve this problem, when like it's been done before, and it's their macro brain.
Yeah, that's.
Speaking of macro brain, this is a little bit different, but it is the TradFi world. I don't know if we have a graphic for this one, but I can explain it pretty easily. Goldman Sachs, my former employer, does a Goldman Sachs Exchanges podcast, and it's well produced. They have good guests on it. On this last one, it's like a 20-30 minute episode. They had Neil Ferguson and Ken Rogoff, and those are like two very accomplished, well-respected people. And the topic of the show was something like, is the U.S. headed towards a fiscal crisis? So I saw that and I was like, all right, I'm going to listen to this one. And there was a point where Ken Rogoff makes the comment, he's talking about other currencies being used more instead of the dollar, and how the dollar's been very dominant. It's probably going to gradually lose that dominant position to other fiat currencies. But then he goes, and it's not just the renminbi and the euro, it's also crypto. They're all causing the dollar to fray at the edges. And when I listen to these podcasts, as you guys can imagine, my ears are always perking up for the word Bitcoin. If they do a transcript, I literally go to the transcript and do Control F Bitcoin and see if it's in there, or Control F crypto. And so I hear him say the word crypto, and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Maybe we'll get Ken Rogoff's view on why he thinks crypto is causing the dollar to fray. What happens? He finishes that thought and they immediately move on to something else. There's like no follow-up questions asked or anything. So it's just another example of like the TradFi people don't get it. Like they don't even want to get it, apparently.
Yeah, it's like that's becoming a normal talking point that, oh yeah, crypto is like kind of like how that interview was like, crypto is a threat to the dollar. But she would never be able to, probably, you know, maybe she could, but explain why that is, or explain crypto in any meaningful way. Right.
There's this funny way that the haters are sometimes like more bullish than the most bullish Bitcoiners, where it's just like, yeah, if we don't ban Bitcoin, it will destroy the US dollar. Like, wow, you're pretty bullish on Bitcoin, huh? Left to its own devices, it will totally replace the US dollar. Amazing. You must own some.
It's a Ponzi scheme with no intrinsic value, which will also displace the US dollar.
Yeah, exactly.
Shout out to Bank of America for getting this right. You can see it in there. It's kind of small, but they see Bitcoin as being one of the 1,000 years of technological disruption, right up there with EVs, CRISPR, and AI and iPhones. That's pretty crazy.
It's pretty crazy.
This is, yeah, while we're still in TradFi land here, this is a perfect one to cover. So yeah, this is Bank of America research, like sell side Wall Street research. And they put this out, and Sam Callahan had an interesting take on it. He's like, this is a Wall Street bank that's putting Bitcoin in the same category as the printing press, the steam engine, the light bulb, all the internet. But it's like Bank of America is not really building anything meaningful in the world of Bitcoin. So that is interesting. The optimistic take there is that these research functions, maybe they do have some independence. They just cover what they think is interesting. And they're a completely different part of the firm who's driving, you know, what we're going to build in Bitcoin or anywhere else. So sometimes it is just them exploring their interests. And there was another funny take by a Swan employee. Go ahead.
There's like one of those things that doesn't belong. Like there's all these like computers, AI, DVDs. Like, are we really putting DVDs in the same category as the internet, Bitcoin, and AI? Like, I don't know, man. I don't think DVDs, like, we don't even use them anymore. Like, I don't know if those really fit.
Yeah, it's above Man on the Moon and everything. Look at that.
Yeah, like we put a Man on the Moon, and then we invented Harry Potter Goblet of Fire on DVD. And you know which one? I don't know.
Bro, what about Blu-ray?
Blu-ray. I mean,
yeah, everyone forgets about Blu-ray.
At least 2 years that mattered.
That's so funny because when I looked at this, DVDs never even registered for me. I looked right past it.
I didn't catch that either.
But the other funny thing I was just going to mention is a Swan employee pointed out, and she was like, how about the irony of Bitcoin being compared to the printing press? Like, we're always talking about how they use the printing press to debase the currency, and it's like Bitcoin is as big as the printing press. I got a kick out of that one.
That's good. Cool. I don't know if you want to finish, John, by, I know kind of Stephen had mentioned it in passing, but I'm kind of interested to get your take, Stephen, and anyone else's on, I don't know if you saw, Stephen, this take by
Sailor Cycle.
Yeah, the Sailor Cycle by Brad Mills. That was it. He posted this. It's kind of like a repackaged supercycle thing. But I mean, I just feel like it's interesting because of he obviously put a lot of thought into this, but just because of the price action we've seen, and it's like, you know, looking like this cycle is slower. And you know, I mean, if we do kind of print money and we got midterms next year, it's like maybe we do continue going up into 2026. Just thought it's interesting to kind of.
I think too, didn't this come out of Sailor had a recent interview where someone asked him about the cycles and he said, yeah, we're past that. So I don't know if this is where that stemmed from, but I did know. I heard that recently on an interview with Sailor.
My view is definitely closer to this than like we have the same cycle again. And I think the only way we don't have this is because we have such a like mania treasury company bid up to like mid to high six figures or something. Like it just becomes like so parabolic to the upside that then you do have some sort of like drop down. But I'm very sympathetic to this view that like the world, the market structure has changed and the view on Bitcoin has changed. And I like the simplest way I'll make this point is that when you look at those 80% drops or 70% drops, you're looking at a period of time where people became fundamentally skeptical on Bitcoin. Let me speak to 2018. It wasn't just that the price ran up so much. It was that in 2018, there was a real and legitimate fear in market participants that like this shit wasn't going to work. That like there are the scaling problems, the ICO bubble. We failed to find applications for blockchain, etc. And I think there was like real fundamental skepticism that it just wasn't going to work out. There was no real thing. And same sort of thing in like 2014 to 2016, like there was fear. There was real misgivings about the long-term future of Bitcoin. Now, obviously not everybody, but like I don't think you can really have that dismal fear anymore. I don't think there's a scenario where it's like, oh man, like, well, you know, institutions bought $300 billion of Bitcoin, but I guess it's over now. It's over. Like, I don't think it happens. And so I am really sympathetic to something that doesn't really resemble the traditional cycle unless all these new entrants get completely levered up and shoot it too high and then, you know, have a debt issue.
Yeah, and I think it's important to mention, like, there are still some decent sized drawdowns, even in a chart depicted like that. And the human psychology and macroeconomics, there are still cycles that'll play out and impact Bitcoin price, in my opinion. But I don't think we can see the same 4 years play out every single time going forward. Like that's going to change. And yeah, to Steven's point, I think everything we're kind of seeing today shows that. But then again, you know, there's still drawdowns. You still, you know, that's going to be a natural part of this growing asset.
Yeah, it's more a stab at the 4 year cycle as we know it. And he even pulled up the kind of the S&P before and after kind of the quantitative easing era as like the 2008 financial crisis, and then the stair step pattern up after that. As a you know, you obviously see drawdowns and little mini bear markets in there as well. But it just means that we won't see, you know, crazy 80-90% drawdowns in a Bitcoin winter for 2 years or a year and a half straight. But so interesting.
I'm sympathetic to it. And I know people kind of say this every time, but it didn't work for those guys, but maybe it'll work for me.
Yeah. And I mean, at the same time, it's like, you know, history rhymes until it doesn't. So it's like, obviously you got to take this with a grain of salt. We could easily still have another crazy bear market and 80% drawdown again. But you know, it's interesting to kind of talk about and throw around ideas.
It has to break at some point. Like that I'm like very high convict. Can't do this forever. So this parabolic run up 80% drop, like that will not happen forever. It's a question of when. And I'm willing to bet it's this time.
Yeah. I agree with what you guys said. Just to underscore it. And I like the conversation because one of the questions I get from people a lot is, what do you think Bitcoin cycles look like going forward? Do you think we ever see an 80% drawdown again? And I think those are kind of different questions because, like Steven laid out, there's two different things to say. Bitcoin went parabolic because it was like FOMO, crazy adoption, price ran up, and there had to be a huge drop, 70, 80%. That could happen. But coupling that with a period of people thinking Bitcoin is dead, just like that happened as recently as 2022. But the four of us didn't believe it, but most of the world thought, okay, we just saw Celsius, BlockFi, Voyager, FTX, biggest scam since Bernie Madoff. Like Bitcoin's really dead. It's 15K. It's below its 2017 high. Like we all lived through it, right?
Yeah, they thought SBF was the CEO of Bitcoin, you know.
Yeah, yeah, like literally. So I think you don't see that. Just like Hurley was saying, that is the kind of Bitcoin winter. Bitcoin is dead. I don't think you see that. You could see a 70% drawdown on its own. I think you only see that after some sort of parabolic rise.
Yeah. You would need to see a huge run up first. And then I'd also be skeptical on the duration. Like there's two things that make a bear market nasty, the magnitude and the duration. It's how far does it drop, but also how long does it last, right? Like COVID was a bear market, but it lasted for like 2 months. No one really cares. Like it was painful, but as long as you didn't sell at the bottom, it didn't really matter a few months later. So that's something else that I could see change. Like if, it's just less duration. It's shorter lived. And like, the big question mark is just like, what happens with treasury companies, right? Like how levered do they get? How much of a bid do they build? And how much are they able to sustain that bid when eventually the market isn't just going up and the appetite for capital to fund these things go down? I'm obviously a little bit of a believer, and I think these things last and have staying power, but I think that'll be the biggest variable here. Unless we see SBR or something like that.
Makes sense. All right. We are going to wrap in a couple minutes here. So I will just hit some of the highlights here. I do have a 3 o'clock Eastern time call. So we're going to wrap in a couple minutes. So before we hit maybe some quick hits at the end here, want to shout out BTC in DC. This should be a really fantastic event. If you care about Bitcoin policy and adoption in the US, you should really go to this event. It's going to be a mix of Bitcoiners, lawmakers, thought leaders. Terrence Yang, if you're listening, you love the term thought leaders. Right in the heart of Washington, the great capital of the United States. You can meet with people who are literally shaping Bitcoin's future from a regulatory perspective. So btcindc.com. Use the promo code SWAN for 10% off your ticket. Swan is a sponsor of this event. And also a quick shout out to Mara, the world's largest publicly traded Bitcoin miner, for supporting this show and for helping make Bitcoin the world's most decentralized and secure monetary network. All right, cool. Let's any other quick hits that we did not cover here that you guys want to talk about? There's one that I was just aware of in a few minutes before the show started. There's a headline that France is voted to not use their surplus energy to mine Bitcoin. Just wanted to throw that out there. France not going to make it. With that, anything else you guys want to hit?
France.
Sorry, I missed that, Stephen. What'd you say?
Have fun staying France.
Ouch, replacing poor with France. That's good.
Germany selling at 55K and France saying, no, we would rather waste our surplus energy on nothing than mine Bitcoin with it.
That was my question. What else are you gonna use it for?
We'd rather waste it.
There's so much excess energy that we waste in Canada, like with hydro and stuff, that I'm just like, man, we're so dumb. We should have been mining Bitcoin for so long. It's just like, when are they going to realize that you can literally just, if you, instead of like pushing that energy into the ground, you can literally just print money. Like crazy.
All right, awesome, guys. It's 2 minutes till the hour here, so we're going to wrap it there. I will just give a very quick shout out to Swan Private. 3 of us here are part of the Swan Private team. As you guys know, Stephen is moving on, but he has been the head of the Swan Private team for years now. This is our concierge offering for high net worth individuals. We can help you with different types of account setup, brokerage, different types of custody, retirement accounts, inheritance planning, Bitcoin-backed loans. The list goes on. So if you guys are interested in those types of services and having a partner who can help guide you through all of it, as well as a platform that you can use, Swan Private might be for you. So reach out to any one of us or go to the Swan Private website and we can have a convo and help you out. All right, guys. Stephen, do you want to wish anyone a good day to close us out here?
I hope we all have a good day, man. I hope for all the Bitcoiners watching, regardless of how you feel about any of this, I hope you have a good day, and I think you're going to have a good year. And
don't miss next week, because that's your send-off episode, isn't it, Stephen?
Yeah.
Next week, and Brady will be back in his regular role. So yeah, don't miss next week's Swan Signal Live, 2 p.m. Eastern on Friday. Awesome, guys.
See you guys.
Awesome, everyone.